voter bloc,
Okay.
let's say, is all about
We are
promoting that kind of
starting.
heady stuff, I think. So
Okay.
it would be
Okay.
against his interests, I think, to go after that, especially in
Okay.
a voting sense.
We are starting, people. Nice to
Voter bloc, let's say,
see
is
you
all
guys.
about
Hold on.
promoting
Let
that
me.
kind of heady stuff, I think. So it would be
This one
against
needs
his
to be
interests, I think, to go after
turned
that,
off.
especially in a
Okay.
voting sense.
Hold on. Okay, we are running right now. Hi, people. This is Edip, and we are going to. I want to first of all, today is 24th of April 2021. We are going, God willing, to repeat these meetings every Saturday at 19 GMT time, Greenwich. How do you pronounce it? I don't know even how to pronounce that word. This stuff, Greenwich time. It is. It might be different than London time. In summer times, London moves the time change by 1 hour. Therefore, please pay attention. Some people got confused regarding the timing, and therefore, every Saturday live will be meeting here. And I want to lower your expectation from meetings. How expectation? You expect that just all-knowing people will come here, will just share so much information. Suddenly you are filled with information. Well, I hope that will happen once a while. But the purpose of this to create network and relation and knowledge about each other's. And I think that there are people around the world in 57 so-called Muslim countries who see the problem, the common denominator, major problem, the disease or the virus infected these 57 countries. And they are suffering. They are suffering intellectually, personally, in many ways. Therefore, it is to create a get to know each other here, light talk, and sometimes we'll invite some guests. We'll discuss some important issues as a panel. Today we have Annie Zonneveld here. Do you see Annie? Let me see whether they see you. Hold on. How can we make you visible? Okay, here it is. And let's see how is it done. Well, I want to see it on YouTube. And sometimes we invite some. It is delayed on YouTube. It is delayed. Issues. Linda, please turn off your computer. Here. Okay, I need to mute everyone because anyone who comes here will create noise. Hold on. Okay, 1 second. I apologize. I don't have right now. Hold on.
Is it okay?
Okay. Okay, is everyone mute now? Okay, Zoni, go ahead. I want to introduce Zoni. I say Zoni, not Ani. I apologize.
That's good.
Ani, tell us about yourself, about your work, and because we have known each other for several years, but this is the first time we are together here, and God willing, we'll continue this work together. And this will be also, I would like to, before just you start, we also invite Sunni leaders or activists or Shiite or Catholic or anyone who have a cause, who invite people to their heavens or hells. We invite them also for dialogue, and if they want, for debate. And I do think that we should be able to debate issues peacefully without kind of threatening each other's lives. This will be a very speech area. Therefore, this is also an invitation and challenge, and also for atheists and deists and agnostics alike. We want to establish peace on this planet. If you ask me what is my religion is peacemaker. We need to live in peace, and perhaps one of the prerequisites of the peace is freedom and justice. Therefore, you are welcome to join us. Your philosophy or your belief could be very different. No problem, we'll discuss it. We may be very kind of without mercy. We'll discuss, debate those issues, but at the end, we'll declare each other as brothers and sisters, because we are all on this little planet. We are all children of Adam. Okay, Ani, nice to see you.
Oh, it's very nice to see you. Your phone call to me a few days ago was really made my day. So my name is Annie Zonneveld. I am the founder and president of Muslims for Progressive Values, and I am also a founder of Alliance of Inclusive Muslims, which is an umbrella human rights organization, and it's the first umbrella human rights organization that is of Muslim organizations and or Muslim cultures. So I started MPV, or Muslims for Progressive Values, 15 years ago here in the United States, and we have 8 chapters in the US, and we basically are challenging the orthodoxy and the misogynistic and all the human rights abuses in the name of Islam. And so we do this work at the community level, and we also do this work at the United Nations, where we challenge a lot of the human rights abuses that are being justified in the name of Sharia law by the Muslim majority countries. And in the third set, I also do a lot of programming in Africa, and I've implemented some programs in Tunisia, Malaysia, in partnership with imams who are feminists and human rights in their form of advocacy. And the language that we use in the work that we do is we have coined it as Islamic human rights language, which to some feminists, whether feminists in the West or secular feminists like in Tunisia, they have a real issue with putting the word Islam and human rights in the same sentence. So those are some of the dynamics that I have to work within and work around. On to you.
Great to hear that. And to my followers, I have about 100,000 subscribers here. But we will, God willing, these Saturday meetings will continue. And you are welcome here, Ani. Every Saturday, I am expecting you here, hopefully, and you expect me here too. In fact, I will give you co-hosting because in May, the beginning of May, I'm going to have a travel. That time, I would like you to also host these meetings. And now the question is, in the United States, what do you think about the Muslim population in the United States? Do you have an idea how many Muslims are there here, or people whose heritage is Muslim, or they come from Muslim countries?
Well, the statistics is it's still very vague. There's no accurate reading, but they're estimating, or the estimate is about 3 million to 3.5 million. The Pew Research did a study where they've been following the attitudes of American Muslims between 2007 and 2017, and they did 3 studies: 2007, 2013, and 2017. And on each, they've asked the same questions for all of these 3 studies. And what they've been able to measure is that in 2017, 69% of American Muslims find spiritual inspiration outside the mosque, and 72%.
What percentage? Can you repeat again?
69.
69. That's a big number.
Huge
big number. Because
that's for the men. For the women, it's 72% of American Muslim women.
Okay.
And for me, I'm like, well, of course, there's not much inspiration going on in the mosque. and then I think 52% of American Muslims believe that Islam should be interpreted for the 21st century. We need a new ijtihad, basically, which is really wonderful to hear. So.
Great. I have here one of my very old friend, old not age-wise, she's younger than me. I had to Spotlight, she escaped from Spotlight. She's like a Einstein right now. First time I see her, long time we haven't met each other. She's Linda from Britain. Can we welcome her too a little bit? Linda, do you know how to unmute yourself?
I was trying to unmute myself. Peace, brother. How are you?
Thank you very much. Finally, I met her. Met you here, long time.
Last time in Turkey.
Wow, this has been so many years.
Yeah.
And you're welcome. And
Thank you.
You may join us too at the same time. Do you know Ani?
No, I don't know any of the people that are here. Only
okay.
you.
Well, okay, you will know. And okay, now what about Britain? Do you have any idea about British Muslims?
Absolutely not. We keep ourselves to ourselves. That's why I said to you, I am totally underqualified to be here. So basically, I can be visual, but not soon because I need to break fast in a moment. I haven't eaten for 16 and a half hours. So I will be taking my video off so I can munch and listen at the same time.
Mashallah. Hopefully we'll see you and Chris here more frequently. I think you are qualified in many ways to talk because you have your own personal experience. Let me tell you something, Ani. I have very interesting experience with Linda and her husband, Chris. We know each other for more than 20 years. Oh my gosh.
Nearly 30.
Huh?
Nearly 30, before your kids were born.
Yeah, nearly 30 years.
Yeah.
And once they visited us and we were studying the Quran together, and Linda has no clue about Arabic, doesn't know Arabic, and her husband too. But they found an error in my translation, a serious error. They don't know Arabic. I give them an example. And they said, this must be an error in your translation. I really look at it, lo and behold, it was error. And they don't know Arabic. They are not mullahs, but they use God-given reasoning. They found problem with the other verses. They inferred then the meaning of this verse must be this, and they were right. Therefore, I love them. Since then, I remember them. That they are one good example that in order to understand the Quran, Arabic is not prerequisite. Mind, reasoning is
Very
prerequisite.
Very
Mashallah.
true.
Nice meeting you. Okay, I'm taking you out of the spotlight. So, okay. Annie, yes, you told me before entering here that you are using the Quran, a reformist translation.
Yes, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people who come to Muslims for Progressive Values always ask for what is a good Quran for them to study in order for them to become either better Muslims or for them to understand, to reconcile their progressive values with Islam. Or people who are very interested in Islam, want to convert to Islam, but really want to find a more progressive and inclusive interpretation of the Quran rather than the typical. And so what we always, or I always, share the PDF version. It's like, this is the one that you need to be reading. So go nowhere else.
MashaAllah. And I told you I want to share with people too. We have right now also the application version of it in both in Turkish and in English. I have also Turkish translation, but it is for Android now. There are some other applications, but they are not the latest, most recent version, and they are not well done. And therefore, soon it will be also for iPhones, and it is for free. And I want to emphasize, I don't make money from my books on religion, including the translations of the Quran, both in Turkish and English. Therefore, you can find the PDF anywhere for free, but the printing, somehow it costs, and there also Amazon makes some money, but it is the price is really low, and I don't make money from the things. Therefore, feel free to share the PDF. And any question, soon we are going also to have a website. Any criticism or problem that you see in that website, you can just find the verse number and then put your input very shortly. Say, this is error, here is my correction. For Turkish, we did it, but the same website, native. Anyway.
Edip, this is actually really important because there is a real hunger. So like I said in my introduction, I do a lot of work in many parts of the world. And even within the context of the United Nations, there's a real desire, there's a real hunger for an Islam that is liberating, an Islam that is uplifting, not an Islam that is oppressive. And so what your contribution is really remarkable in how it helps change people's attitudes and people's, therefore, practices of how Islam should be practiced. And so you know, I'm not a scholar of Islam. I've never claimed to be a scholar of Islam, but I have one thing that I do well, and that is I read books such as yours, Edip, and other scholars of Islam, and I'm able to make that language accessible to the masses. And so dumb it down or use simple terms that are relatable to the village people that I'm speaking to, or the urban educated folks that I speak to, or policymakers. I'm able to take all this knowledge, progressive Islam interpretation knowledge, philosophers, thinkers, and make it accessible and help change policymakers, help change the attitudes of the imams, which then have the power, the pulpit, bully pulpit, so to speak, to really influence the society from which they lead. And like the work that we do in Africa, for example, in Burundi, DRC, and Rwanda, and then now in Kenya. In Kenya, we are working with local partners and with the what they call the Qadi court there, which is basically a Sharia court. But there we are basically working with them in making the court system more egalitarian, making it more accessible to women. You know, like the women knowing that they have the right to divorce. And in some instances, you know, like trans people actually have the right to inheritance in the context of Islam. There's so many reforms that need to happen. And so with the women folk or with the imams that I work with in Africa, what is really remarkable is that they are genuine about their interest in lifting up their society, unlike a lot of the imams in America and in the West. They are so politically savvy and hypocritical because they know what language to use in order to sound progressive, right? But they're not progressive. They're just pretenders. And so what they say to the non-Muslim public is different than what they say internally. And that's the difference, and that's probably one of the reasons why I don't work with American-based imams. But I am more than happy to work with imams in the Muslim world because they see how their society are so oppressed. They see how they're being left behind. They see how women are being treated so awful, violent. Domestic violence is being justified in the name of Islam, etc., etc. You know what the issues are. And so for them, these imams, these are young, educated imams that are educated not in Saudi Arabia, but they're educated in Zanzibar and African universities. And so they maintain that African inclusivity because the Islam in Africa has very deep Sufi roots, for example. You know, their families are very mixed. They don't have these rigid, attitudes against each other, Muslims against Christian. So all these new conflicts that we're seeing within Muslim societies are new. It is not inherent to, for example, in the African Islam tradition. So that's the importance of the work that you're doing. That's the importance of how do we filter down that knowledge that is in your head and so many other people, scholars of Islam, that are so enriching, and how do we filter that down to the masses and really use it, apply it for peace, apply it for human rights, apply it for the good of humanity, rather than just this theology that is not practical for the 21st
It should
century.
be connected to reality of the world. The messengers, prophets, they came, they dealt with the issues head on, and they were activists. Therefore, I cannot accept a Muslim as pretending to be leader, turning blind eye to the problems that afflicted the so-called Muslim world. We have a lot of problems. We are in many ways. And I do think that in a short time, if there is no reform in religious understanding, and also cultural and also political, and also legislative, the so-called Muslim world will become dinosaurs. And because the gap between the Western world, or let's say the world that is progressing, is increasing greatly, and they may not be able to catch up. And therefore, there is right now urgency to change. And for this one, I think Turkey right now in my focus. I have been very focused on Turkey, warning and discussing the issues with the Turkish people. And right now it is a bipolar nation. There's a group, they want to get out of this backward religious frame and change the paradigm, do reform themselves, their understanding, their culture. And there are some, they go all the way backward. In fact, you cannot believe that right now, millions of people in Turkey, they want an Ottoman dictator come and they become their ra'aya, means their herd. And it is uttered. It is uttered, it is accepted. The guy says, I want to become a herd, a sheep, a cow of a sultan. And this is the utter denial of a person's honor. You know, the Quran says, yes.
Edip, you know, the thing that I've learned about as a result of running NPV for 15 years, you have a lot of sheep. People are lazy. They don't want to read. They don't want to study. And for me, when people email us and, oh, can you tell me, can I do this in Islam and can I do that? And I'm like, you know, and I push that away because I'm not here to be your mullah. I'm here to just teach you to just think for yourself. And if you don't think, then you're not really being a good Muslim, because it's all about critical thinking. And it's mandated in the Quran for you to think. So it is really remarkable how people are so lazy, and they are also, you know, ingrained that, oh no, you are not qualified to think about Islam and you are not qualified to do X, Y, and Z. You have to ask the religious teacher. You have to ask your imam, your mullah, your sheikh, because they know what Islam is. And that's the hierarchy of religion. And unfortunately, our Muslim mullahs have copied other faith traditions, and which is really pitiful, and how they control how Muslims think and speak and dress and etc., etc. And so that's why we have a very stifling, our societies are stifled. We do not think critically, and therefore we are not creative thinkers anymore, and therefore we have very few patents in the Muslim world compared to Japan even. You know, it's just, this is why, you know, you can have money growing on trees because of oil, but that's not going to be your future, because when that ends, your society ends. And so at the end of the day, I think, especially for Muslims in Africa, there is a real awakening in this critical thinking and this analysis of what really is Islam. If Islam is about peace, you know, we hear this in the West a lot, Islam is a religion of peace. Well, if Islam is a religion of peace, why is there such disaster and mayhem in the Muslim world and so much violence? It's because at the root of it all, that's not what our teachers and our religious scholars are really teaching us. And if they are, it's only staying at the university level, it's not trickling down to the masses. And that's the problem.
And I think I'm going back to one point you raised about Muslim imams in the United States. There are, for example, I want to give a name, Zakir Naik. Have you heard about him?
Yeah.
He's a good preacher. He talks very well. He's lying against Christians. He defends supposedly Islam. But I call him window dresser. He's not addressing any of the major issues, problems inherent in his religion. He's not really doing any service to me. He does very disservice by window dressing, by cover up the problems and basically supposedly defending Islam against Christians, giving a false sense of victory to people who are suffering in hells. And there are, have you heard about the 5 pillars of Islam?
Yes.
Let's start with that one. In fact, I have videos on that. I don't know whether I made English one. By the way, my channel has both Turkish and English videos. Turkish videos, after my name, you see parenthesis T for Turkish, English E. Right now, Turkish videos are outnumbering English one, but I have a few hundred English videos too. The Zakir Naik, people like Zakir Naik, I said they are, I challenged them, I invited them for a debate, a discussion. It's not, I don't want to be contentious, I want to have a peaceful discussion, but unfortunately, they are not there to really change, do really any change. They want to just do status quo, keep the status quo, and make money out of religion.
That's
and
right.
Therefore, I am inviting people here, if you are a serious seeker, and please relay my invitation to Zakir Naik, or there was another person, Khan, or there are like Brown, Professor Brown. And I think he's doing a lot of disservice to Muslims. He's promoting hadith, and I invited him to a debate, but he did not, he declined. Behind me, he talks, but if we
This
cannot...
has been my experience. Edip, I can tell you about Zakir Naik. So he, I'm originally from Malaysia, and you know, it's so sad to see how Malaysia has also gone backwards. And Malaysia gave Zakir Naik permanent status in Malaysia, which is so hard to get, by the way. And even a piece of land or an island for him to start his university or institute there with the support of the Saudi. And, you know, some Muslims in Malaysia are complaining about this because, you know, this is a guy that preaches in a way that really dismantles and creates conflict between religions and races. And Malaysia is a multicultural, multi-religious country. So wherever he goes, he is basically creating this schism between different religions, and we don't need this in Malaysia. And so even within my own family, I see such a ramping up of Islamic supremacist ideology, to the point of being really racist against Chinese and Indians, anyone who's not a Malay or anyone who's not a Muslim. It's really despicable in the name of Islam, yeah? And even here in the United States, I've had conversations with, you know, with your Reform rabbis that basically they are similar in their values to us in the progressive communities. And the rabbi said to me once, Ani, it'll be so interesting to have you and a more traditional imam sit on stage in our synagogue. Our community would love to see and observe the differences of theology between you and a more traditional imam. And I have this imam, and I will not say his name, but and I just smiled, you know. I said, well, Let me know if he accepts the invitation, and I smile in a sarcastic kind of way because I know that's not going to happen. Because, of course, the imam said to the rabbi, oh, she's not traditionally educated, she's not an Arab speaker, etc. Always dismissing and disqualifying you, right? And like I said, I'm not a scholar, but I can talk about my Quran, I can talk about human rights issue in the context of Islam, but that is not something they're comfortable, because then they will really truly expose the hypocrisy of what Islam is and what they preach. And they are two very different things.
Yeah. I think a very important point a moment ago, I was sidetracked about the 5 pillars of Islam. They created 5 pillars of Islam. It is not mentioned in the Quran, but they somehow, they list a few things, 5 things, and that also, they turn those things into rituals, meaningless rituals, and then therefore the Islam becomes what they frame. Says, what is it? Salat, Saum means fasting, and praying, fasting, Hajj, and what else?
Declaration
Of
but Edip, there's an Islamic school in California, in the Bay Area. They have 6 pillars of Islam. The 6th one is jihad, believe it or not.
Yeah, they added, because it is arbitrarily made. But when I look at the Quran, if I want to make a list of the priorities, important condition of Islam is peacemaking, I found number 1 is questioning, reasoning the ancestors and the crowd. This is the beginning, reasoning, because that is the entrance, the most important stuff, repeated throughout the Quran. And the second is peace. The name Islam means peace, to establish peace. That's the things, not to kind of become warmongers. And the other is solidarity, being in solidarity with peoples. Salat, the meaning of salat has 2 meanings. One is solidarity with God, not 2 meanings, 2 aspects. Being in connection with God and be connection with people. The public prayer, so-called prayer, it is public solidarity.
But there's also, Edip, yes, there's also the God in you. Yeah, it's not just that God there somewhere, it's also the God in you.
Yeah, the idea of God. Now, as far as just even the beginning, the Shahada, it's called Shahada, the statement, testimony. And that one, even when we look at it, that one is distorted. When we look at the Quran, throughout the Quran, Muhammad's name is not attached to La ilaha illallah or La ilaha illahu. There is only one God. Yes. And in that one, specifically 30 places, it is not a coincidence, because in chapter 39, verse 45, God emphasizes, says, when God's name alone is mentioned, uttered, they don't like it. Those who do not believe in the ultimate day hereafter, they want other names besides God. They get happy. And therefore, this is about God oneness, because the Quran invites everyone to one God, not God plus Jesus, God plus Muhammad, God plus this and that, because that way evil has divided. The religious clergymen and politicians divided us based on the holy names besides God. God is the creator of the universe, has the greatest attribute. Serving God means serving the universal principles. God's name is ilm, means knowledge. You serve knowledge, you seek knowledge. God is muqsit, means he is just. You seek justice. And God is peace, salam. You seek peace, you serve peace. Therefore, all the attributes of God, with the exception of few, are for you is a goal, for us is goal. And these are universal goals. These only will make the earth a much better place to live, will create peace and justice on earth. Therefore, even the list is manipulated, and the meaning of salat or hajj is absolutely emptied. with the rituals.
Yeah.
When you talk about Islam, is a bunch of rituals. Look at the Quran. Ablution is one short verse. But if you look hadith books or sectarian books, volumes is a book. It is a book of tahara. Means how to take ablution, even how to go to bathroom, how to clean is hygiene. Goodness sake, let it to people with their mind find about hygiene. But some ignorant people teach people how to clean themselves. In fact, they dirty themselves. It's not even cleaning.
Well, you know, the thing that we also have to be conscientious of is the resource. Like water right now is such a valuable resource, and the amount of water that we waste when we do wudu, I think that that's something that we as Muslims, we have to be more mindful and more reflective of. And also when it comes to the slaughter of animals for Eid, I mean, it's just distasteful, and as far as I'm concerned, and it has really deviated from the concept, like, look, we need to feed the hungry. That was a whole first reason for doing so, but now it's more of an ego thing. Then, you know, I don't know if you know the history of Mecca. And it's really interesting that after Prophet Muhammad died, there was this constant warfare of who was going to take over Mecca. And it was all, and the brutality in the slaughter of each other towards becoming the Sultan of Mecca. And so after prayers, and this is the funny thing, is that, so after the prayers, you know, we say, and bless Prophet Muhammad and his family and the four caliphs, etc., right? So so you have, now you add the four caliphs, and then what they would also do is that they would also add whoever the sultan was at that time.
Yes,
now next
exactly.
year there would be another sultan, and then it would be replaced with the name of this sultan. You know, so it was all about power, and it's a very bloody history, sadly.
Okay,
yeah.
What can we do? First of all, I want to just remind something. In my translation of the Quran, I'm not happy with the language, Zoni. The language needs a lot of improvement. The English language means the literary aspect of it. Therefore, I would like to invite people to help me out to set up maybe somewhere to improve the language, to have maybe a group of people maybe leading, but to make it better. If there are some people like Aisha Musa, do you know Professor Aisha Musa? Aisha Musa is a very good progressive professor. She was teaching Islamic studies and Arabic. She's a convert, American convert. Right now she's in Seattle. She was supposed to help me out to this one. And I hope if you want, if your English is good. How is your English, Annie?
My English is very good.
I love it.
I've edited books. I edit a lot of stuff. So yeah.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, my English is not, English is my fifth language. Therefore, though creatively I write well, but when it comes to translation, it was not the way I wanted. I had conflicting goals. One, I want to stick with the Arabic because I didn't want to go paraphrase the verse. I could make it much literally better, but then I would be given ammunition to the clergyman to say, here is the word is not here, this word. Well, though I convey the meaning correctly, but they would show people, oh, this word is not exactly here. They would kind of distort and manipulate the issue. I didn't want to give them much ammunition. Therefore, I tried that one. But I think it is possible to improve the language and still as much as to be close to the literal translation.
Yeah.
Now, you told me that you have a idea project to start a YouTube TV channel and invite people to have different program sections in different maybe languages, or maybe different people. Maybe we have this channel not in different languages, one language, but different people have their own program, could be from different countries. And we can have in different languages, different channels. I think it would be better if the same channel has different languages. People with time, they will not go continue that channel. Go ahead.
Well, the idea is, you know, as you and everyone knows, that there are literally thousands of television stations that preach hate and misogynistic and, you know, all of that. And so what we really wanted to do was to create one channel, many languages, one cause. And that cause is basically rooted in human rights and universal values. And so this is basically going to be the channel that is a product of the umbrella organization Alliance of Inclusive Muslims. And so it's called, which is AIM, so it's AIM TV World. And what we can do is basically, we already have commitment from in Urdu, in Mali native language, in Swahili, and commitments from our partners in Tanzania, Uganda, and so I'm soliciting from our European and also Latin American partner organizations to talk about it in their own native language. And I think that the different languages is actually very important, because even in one channel, in one YouTube channel, you can have different playlists. So you can have, you know, an Urdu playlist, you can have a Turkish playlist, etc., etc. So that's the way we're going to design the television station. So we already have the platform. It's just now a matter of soliciting and, you know, solidifying the programming and getting the programs to broadcast. So that's what we're doing. And everything, and the important thing is that having it on one channel actually is a way to consolidate our global progressive and reform-minded Muslims onto one channel. And whether it's and the fact that it'll be in different languages is actually going to be really beautiful, because it's also going to show funders, it's also going to show policymakers, look, you know, these are the Muslims that are doing the work within their community in affirming human rights for all. And we will not, for example, be able to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals 2030, which the United Nations aiming to do. We are not going to be achieving so many of the environmental issues until these organizations that are doing the work in the field are being recognized and being funded. So the motivation is to be able to support our member organizations by giving them that platform. So that's the whole idea.
MashaAllah. And I would like to give a Zoom link to those people who are participating in live chat. I'm right now giving them, and we open for a just get to know each other, a little talk, and we want to end it in less than an hour, in 59 minutes. We want to end this one. Next week, we'll have, again, similar, we'll continue. Again, please invite, would love to have debate, discussion with Sunni and Shiite scholars, with any other group of people who differ differently. We are not escaping from debate and discussions, because our examples, prophets and philosophers throughout history, they were on the streets, in the bazaars, in public square, they were debating and discussing the issues. Instead of threatening each other, instead of creating walls between us, we need to come dialogue and discuss, debate the issues. Okay, this is an invitation and challenge for everyone. Yes, Yusuf, you want to have something? Welcome.
Thank you. One thing I'd like to mention is something that's quite known in the Arab world, a story. So there's a story that an Arabic sheikh from one of the Arabic countries, which is like, you know, a religious leader, he went to visit Europe, and he returned back to the Arabic countries. And upon his return, he said to the people, I went to Europe and I saw Islam and no Muslims. And I came back to the Arabic countries and I saw Muslims, but no Islam. I think maybe he returned back to the sect Islam in the Arabic countries that exists, and he was so shocked by, like, look what they have in Europe. Like, here we have the establishment of human rights, freedom of religion, these kinds of values that have been empty, I'd say, probably from the so-called Muslim world until after the death of the Prophet. Like, after he died, everything went, I'd say. Some argue that we never had those kind of rights in the Muslim world, even in the Prophet's time. I think potentially we did, because there's a document, I don't know if you've seen it, called the Covenant of Muhammad, the Prophet, that around the time the Prophet started taking power in the Arabian Peninsula, I think they started going towards the Egypt direction in terms of trade and things like that. I don't think they'd moved in with an army yet. And there was Copts living there, which are a type of Christians that live in Egypt, and they made an agreement between the Muslims and them. This is like a really old document that you can search it up. It's called the Covenant of Muhammad, and it was basically giving them rights, and that none of the Muslims were allowed to take their property. You were allowed to marry from them, and if the wife of a Muslim was a Christian, she wasn't to be prevented from going to church and doing her religious duties, as were the Christian monks. They weren't to be prevented from carrying out their religious practices, although it was Christianity. So in my analysis of the history, I think these rights did once exist, but after the Prophet died, and as Annie quite rightly mentioned, all this power struggle started kicking off with the 4 caliphs and onwards. A lot of things changed. If you look, even if we focus in and zoom in on the 4 caliphs bit, so like Omar, Abu Bakr, Uthman, one really big example of really weird things that started happening after the Prophet died, and seemingly heretical things. If we focus just on Uthman specifically, there's even a hadith that shows that this happened. Uthman collected all of the Quranic literature that existed in the Muslim world at that time, and he burnt it, like set fire to it, and I think they said they was using it in Egypt to keep the hammams going, like, you know, the Turkish bath kind of things. It's really suspicious, really, why he'd want to do that at that time. And that hadith exists, even, you know, that's on record. That I think it's in Bukhari, that one. So even people who follow a sectarian view, they can't really deny that this happened. However, the spin on it that's done by the sectarian view is that, oh, Uthman wanted to streamline the Quran and have everything in one thing, because of that in the early days of Islam, some things were written on animal hide, some things were written on leather. There wasn't really a printing press, so to speak. That's one argument, but it's a really interesting period of time. And if also we look to what Omar was doing around his time, I think they started to invade Armenia and go to Persia and started on the so-called Islamic conquests. But as far as I'm aware, in Islam, you're only allowed to have the right of defense. You're not allowed to colonize other people groups, invade, kill their people, take slaves, which was happening. And we saw that later on, even after the Rashidun Caliphate, into the Umayyads, who went up to Morocco, Tunisia, Spain, and did terrible things whilst doing that, taking slaves from those countries and shipping them back to their power centers of Damascus, Cairo, and Baghdad. It's a massive difference from the Quran itself, this kind of behavior we see after the death of the Prophet. And unfortunately today, these figures are still glorified in the Muslim countries, like Omar, for example. Like, God forbid you question Omar or his legacy in Arabic countries, or Uthman, or any of the others. And the reason, from my trips out to the Middle East, the reason why it's so guarded to question these is because, first of all, the lack of education. So in the Muslim world, there's been a education and literary vacuum for such a long time because of conquests. So I'll just give you a recent example. So the Ottoman Empire occupied the Muslim countries for upwards of over 400 years. And in that time, they'd restrict intellectuals where they could move. Often they'd kill intellectuals if they posed a significant threat to the state. Any form of like native progression was suppressed, and everything kind of goes back to Istanbul. So if you're an intellectual and you're useful for the empire, they want you. You can't be operating within your own area and improving your own area. And this kind of system of repression and keeping things down, I think this is why until now, basic history that to us into the West is basic. We can read about it online. We get taught it in schools. It's still very unknown in the Arabic world. And if you even mention it, it's seen as offensive, and it's an emotional issue rather than an intellectual discussion like, oh, did this happen? Did it not happen? Was this right to happen? Was it wrong to happen? You can't even discuss it. It's like you've insulted their relative or something. This is one of the biggest problems out there in my experience. And I think the only really solution for that is the improvement of education, because if you're always on the emotional heartstring line, like if you dare to question history, you're hurting my emotions, I'm offended, you've insulted my religion, then it becomes into a censorship kind of environment where you can't question anything. It's almost like I'd compare it to the Catholic Church and what they used to do in the medieval times, you know, when there was repressing intellectuals and you can't question the church narrative or you'll be persecuted. You won't be persecuted as the church did back then. They wouldn't, you won't be persecuted in Muslim countries now. They wouldn't kill you like the days of old, but you'll be censored. You may be arrested. You may have your websites and books banned, as even Edip has back in Turkey back in the day. These kind of censorship things, they stifle progression in these countries. And as you can see, as Annie quite rightly mentioned, and you have mentioned in the past, Edip, we don't really see any intellectual progression or activity there in terms of patents, in terms of inventions, in terms of
there's
anything,
no intellectual. Really. It is basically a desert. Unfortunately, it is intellectual life activity is minimal. It needs to change. By the way, we have about 7 minutes left. I want to keep it under 1 hour. And we have some other people came here. And we have Arisha here. Recently, I haven't met her or him, I don't know, but recently communicated with me, very beautiful letter I received from him or her. If she wants to have a question, go ahead. Arisha, unmute yourself if you have something. Okay.
While we're waiting, I'd like to say that that there is a plethora of progressive and reform-minded younger scholars of Islam now coming out of the Arab world. For example, like our Tunisian scholars of Islam are phenomenal and very brave. Out of Lebanon, out of Morocco, obviously, and some other parts of the world. There are a lot of religious leaders also that are really come out that are very reform-minded, and also, I should really add, at the risk of their own life, being threatened. So I experienced this firsthand working with them. So the thing about it is that because we're so English-centric, sometimes we have a blind spot as to what others are doing in their particular communities and in their own particular languages. And so that's the reason, the importance of consolidating the organizations such as AIM, because we are really consolidating all reform-minded Muslims in all their different perspectives and languages and societies, and to collectively to show that, hey, we are here, we are countering the human rights abuses of the OIC, for example, at the United Nations, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, right? So this is one of the purpose of creating AIM, is to counter the misogynistic human rights abuses in the name of Islam. But again, because we're so English-centric, sometimes we have a blind spot to what's really going on.
And meanwhile, Annie posted here in chat some links, Facebook and website. I will put them as an under the video in information section, so that you can click on, go join the Facebook group, and that's great. Okay, we have Arisha says she lives in UK, but she cannot unmute herself. Somehow she's new, perhaps on Zoom. And that's it. And there are a few people says they would like to come join for discussion, but today we don't have. But my invitation is for anyone on this program. We'll use on theology, philosophy, social, political issues. We'll have guests, but Annie will be our here as fixed, stable co-host. We'll have others. We'll have panels. I have a professor friend of mine wrote that he said he's following. He's teaching in San Diego, one of the universities, and therefore he will join us too. But they want to kind of see what's going on here. Okay, inshallah, we'll invite different people, suggest the names of the people you want to see here as panelists or as a debate. Once I had invited Challenge Dawkins, Richard Dawkins, and Richard Dawkins asked for $25,000, not him, his agent, $25,000 donation for his foundation. Yeah, I said not even 25 cents. I don't pay to anyone. But later, I didn't know his organizer has sent me an email, set up a time. We are ready. Are you ready this time? But I missed that email. 1 year later, I noticed. Therefore, I don't want to criticize the guy for that. That means he gave up from asking for $25,000. But my challenge remains. As far as for non-English countries, recently, Ani and Yusuf, I noticed in Indonesia, there are dozens of journal papers, academic papers written on Quran and reformist translation. Yes. And I see my name in academia, academia.
Yes. Yes.
And there are, in English speaking world, a lot of papers, but in Indonesia, I had no idea. I don't know anyone except one friend, which I'm not communicating for a long time. And they have been writing mostly positive. And because how I do, I copy and put on Google Translate the abstract and stuff. Beautiful papers have written, and that gives me hope. That means even there, people are reading and questioning, even in academia. It's not easy, an academic in public spot and things that those people to positively write about this. It takes a lot of courage, and therefore I am hopeful.
The power of the internet, hey?
Yeah. Okay, I would like to end this here. Thank you very much for your participation. I know we didn't have much question and very rigorous debate today, but we'll continue. Sometimes very low, quiet. We may not talk for 30 seconds, but to get to know each other, to communicate. If you have needs from your country, let us know in the future. Communicate with me, say, I would like to share you some good news or bad news, or some activities that you are doing, you want the world here. This is a place to, God willing, to share with each other. Thank you very much, people. Thank you, Ani, for your time. And thank you, everyone here right now. They are not visible. Many of them do not show their faces. Nice to see you here. God willing, we'll continue this meeting. Take